All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's workshop. Today, we're going to be talking about the future of local search, how remodelers and builders, home improvement contractors can win in 2026 and beyond. If you feel like Google's gotten harder, a little less predictable, or like the rules keep changing, you're not wrong. Search online is shifting fast because of artificial intelligence, because of AI. And so today I want to show you what's actually changing, what still matters, and most importantly, what remodelers should be doing right now to keep getting high quality, local qualified leads this year and then beyond. Google search is changing really fast, like I said. And it's the local contractors, the local companies that are going to feel it first. This isn't about hacks or loopholes, anything like that. It's really about building visibility that Google trusts. So let's go ahead and jump right in. You guys already know who I am, probably why you should be listening to me. By now, you probably know that I've been on both sides of this as a contractor, as a custom home developer, but also as a marketer. I've watched Google evolve for decades, not months. So everything here comes from real world testing, from being in the trenches and just getting our boots wet. And this is really what we do. We help builders, remodelers, and contractors grow their revenue, not just grow their traffic. We're not trying to be the go-to marketing partner for every industry out there. We only work in the home improvement space, a space that I'm familiar with and have been involved in for half my life. And so it's something that I'm passionate about. And so, like they say, you'll never work a day in your life if you actually love what you're doing. I think that probably holds true for most of us on this webinar, right? So let's talk about AI search changes. What remodelers must really understand. SEO is no longer about simply ranking individual pages. It is about becoming a trusted, authoritative source within your market. This is what Google is doing. That is, it's choosing who it trusts the most in order to summarize them in their AI snippets. So, in other words, to feature as that local contractor in an AI summary on page one of Google for others to find you. That's your goal, right? Um, being on Google page one has always been the goal, and now being in Google's AI snippet on page one, their AI overview that they call it. So that's the goal. Local authority now matters more than in just generic content. Because Google really is prioritizing businesses that demonstrate real experience, real relevance within a specific geographical area. Expertise signals, that include depth, specificity, and basically your demonstrated knowledge. Those are increasingly being rewarded in search visibility. And so let's take a look at kind of an example here of Google's AI generated search results, what they generally call the AI overview, as you can see there with the blue diamond. And so if we define this, AI overviews used to be called SGE, Search Generative Experience. These are basically AI powered summaries that appear at the top of the Google search results, like you're seeing right here. And instead of just showing you website links, Google is now synthesizing all of that information into a direct answer. And so in this screenshot, this is one of our clients here. When someone in their area searches best kitchen cabinet designers near me, Google is going to generate a summarized answer pulled from multiple sources before showing traditional organic listings. You can see this is at the top of every search page pretty much. And so this also serves to reduce clicks to, weak or generic content, and it's allowing Google to prioritize authoritative sources. And so with AI overviews and the generative search results that we're seeing now, Google is no longer simply displaying just a list of websites that you can start choosing from and going down the list. It's really pulling from many different sources and then synthesizing those answers into a summary for you. So visibility on search engines doesn't equate to ranking quite like it used to. This means that visibility is no longer limited to, do you just rank number one? The new question now is, did Google reference you in their AI summary, in their AI answer? And then here's another example of how AI pulls from authoritative content. Authoritative content is that content which demonstrates expertise, specificity on the topic, depth of that topic, and real world experience. And so, Google's AI models are going to prioritize content that shows clear expertise, structured organization, real examples, and trust signals like reviews, credentials, experience, things like that. In other words, depth is going to beat volume every time when it comes to publishing content. AI favors content that includes detailed explanations, documented case studies, real data, clear structure, while also deprioritizing those generic summaries that you see or lightly, rewritten content that it can still tell it's just, AI, just blather. It's just not really good content. It's surface level advice that really lacks depth or originality. Google wants proof that you've done the work, that you're continuing to do the work. All those pictures on your website, that's your work. They want remodelers that have real world experience. And so then the question becomes, are you actually publishing that real world experience? And so, you know, we often wonder, why our blog content is getting ignored. And the better question is why thin blog content is getting ignored. Thin content can really be described as just short, shallow content that provides limited depth, originality is just lacking, just really no unique value to it. Yeah, and older, SEO models and the older algorithm versions, short keyword focused blogs could really rank. But today, Google is evaluating topic depth and user value, and generic blog posts that don't move the needle anymore. Google just doesn't care about those generic blog posts. They're just not going to do it for you in search. Thin content basically fails to satisfy that all important search intent, that commercial intent to actually want to buy a service. And also, thin content doesn't really demonstrate authority either. For years, SEO rewarded volume. Businesses were told to just publish consistently every day, day after day, target all kinds of different variations of keywords, and just expand their blog library. I talked to someone just a couple weeks ago that had an AI company just churning out AI blogs, blog after blog after blog, and this is not what Google's looking for, and frankly, that's not what the homeowner's looking for. It's all thin AI content that just doesn't really go into depth on something they can relate to for the project they want to embark upon with you. So. It used to be the assumption was simple, just more pages meant more opportunities to rank. But that model just no longer holds the same weight and just really is not a part of Google's algorithm anymore. 10 short, real surface level articles covering fragments of a topic, they don't really signal expertise. They signal repetition, is really what they signal. If each article lightly touches on a subject without any depth, without any of that specificity we talked about, or that real world context, Google just sees scattered information, not mastery. If it doesn't help users, solve the issue or the knowledge gap that they're trying to solve, Google is just really not going to use it. And so let's also talk about why mass AI generated content is being in de-indexed, because that's happening at, billions and billions of pages are being indexed from possibly your websites all around the country and the world. This is happening already. De-indexing occurs when Google removes a page from its searchable results due to low quality or lack of value. And so Google, it doesn't penalize AI tools. What it does penalize is low quality, repetitive content that lacks any sense of originality or real expertise. Mass produced AI blogs without human refinement often lack experience signals. This is essentially seen as spam, and Google's just filtering it out, basically. Google doesn't penalize content simply because it was created with AI assistance. So, understand that. In fact, Google itself uses AI extensively in its own systems, right? That's pretty obvious. The issue is not the tool. The issue is not that it's AI. The issue is the outcome. Google's priority has always been the same: deliver the most helpful, the most trustworthy, and relevant information to users. Users being their customers, people that are using Google for search. The bottom line is that quality control matters more now than ever before. And so, like when you look at this type of page on here, a page like this often gets removed from Google's index because of keyword stuffing. So you can see repeat, unnatural use of the keyword phrase kitchen remodeling for ranking manipulation. You're just saying, the same thing over and over just to manipulate the algorithm. It also has no original value here. When you look at this, there's no real information, there's no real examples, there's no pricing being included, nothing about your process, how you operate as a company, nothing that really showcases your expertise. It's just a lot of blah, 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 kitchen remodeling this and kitchen remodeling that. That's really thin on content, and it's thin on low trust signals as well. There's no author here. There's no location mentioned. There's no real credentials. No proof of work. You didn't actually put a couple pictures in here that kind of relate to the topic you're talking about. And then there's also what we call the duplicate or doorway page risk. Often part of dozens of nearly identical pages on your website, that maybe just be targeting different cities. I literally just saw this yesterday. Someone, they're like, we serve all these cities, and I said, and all the cities were hyperlinked, and I thought, oh, that's great. And then I clicked on one city and I went, oh, that's a really, well filled out page. And I clicked on the next city, the exact same page. Next city, exact same page. Every single city had the exact same page for what they were talking about. So basically, it was about 20, 25 different service areas, all duplicate. Google doesn't care about that, and your homeowners certainly aren't going to care about that either. You don't want identical pages just targeting a different city, but everything else is identical, and all you're doing is swapping out one word. Google is probably going to treat these as doorway pages, basically a page that you're just trying to lure homeowners into, and so they're just going to remove them entirely from their index. They don't want to feature these in their index for people to click on and just be disappointed with duplicate content saying generic things. And then the last thing is spam signals, trying to over optimize your title or having a really unnatural URL structure. Maybe, robotic writing that people can tell is really, AI, and it's just robotic sounding. It's not helpful to anyone. And then here's another example, talking about the shift from keyword stuffing over to true contextual authority. And so contextual authority means covering a topic comprehensively within its full context, demonstrating your understanding beyond just, simple keyword repetition. And so modern SEO evaluates semantic relevance. Google understands topical relationships. It rewards that depth we talked about, clarity, and related subtopics too. It's not about just a repetition of a single phrase like we showed in that last slide, keyword remodeling over and over and over. If someone searched kitchen remodel cost, for instance, the old goal was to create a page that was optimized around that exact phrase, kitchen remodel costs, included in the title and the headers and the URL, the body copy, and you had a really good chance to rank at that point. But search engines no longer evaluate content based solely on keyword presence. They evaluate whether the page truly satisfies the intent behind the search. Google is rewarding completeness, not repetition. So there's a difference between targeting a keyword and answering a question. It's not about one keyword anymore or one keyword phrase. It's about owning an entire topic from a local perspective. And so let's talk about those local intent signals. This is what Google is measuring now. Local intent signals refer to the behavioral, geographic, and contextual indicators that Google evaluates. So we're talking about search phrasing, we're talking about proximity from the searcher to where your business is located, your reviews and reputation, volume of reviews, the rating that you get, as well as engagement from your brand, from your online assets. And that's going to help determine whether a business is really the most relevant and trustworthy option for users seeking services in that specific area. So Google is now really reading into intent, not just words, intent. And that means location, that means urgency, and relevance all matter. And so there are really different types of search intent. So let's go through those just so you understand. So we've got informational searches. Informational searches are conducted by users who are researching and just kind of gathering information. These individuals are early in the decision-making process and they're not yet ready to hire. So, those searches are going to kind of revolve around search remodel ideas or maybe bathroom layout inspiration. Some kind of a search phrase that reflects awareness stage level of interest. This traffic can build brand exposure, but it usually doesn't directly generate revenue. Not yet, not at this stage. And then next is commercial intent searches. Commercial searches indicate that users are evaluating services and they're comparing options. These users are definitely further along in the decision-making process. So now we're talking about searches like kitchen remodel costs. They need to know how much this is going to cost them. Or best cabinet brands. Now they're starting to get dialed in on what kind of cabinets they really want. These are going to kind of reflect more mid-funnel behavior. The informational searches are top of the funnel. Commercial intent searches are now kind of in the middle of the funnel. These people are starting to move down the funnel a little bit. They're actively assessing possibilities and kind of beginning to narrow their options on what they want done and who they might be working with. And then we've got what we consider high intent local searches. This is a type that most contractors really pay attention to. And unfortunately, they typically ignore the previous two types of searches that I just discussed. High intent searches, indicate immediate intent to hire somebody, and often include, geographic modifiers as well. Searches like, kitchen remodeler near me or best kitchen remodeler in Charlotte. These represent strong revenue potential. And this is where business growth occurs. Remodelers typically don't need more traffic, they just need the right traffic. So these different types of search, they really matter because they reveal the buyer intent and at what different stage that they might be in that decision-making process. And so that allows you to align your content strategy with visibility, trust building, and ultimately revenue generation in mind. Let's talk about proximity signals. We talked about location a little bit. Google's evaluation of how physically close your business is to the searcher is what we're talking about when it comes to proximity signals. So physical location still influences map rankings, quite a bit, in fact, if we're truly being honest here. But authority and relevance can overcome distance as well, within reason, of course. Google evaluates how physically close a business is to the searcher when determining, who's going to show up in those map rankings. And so the example I like to use is, when you're searching for a restaurant, say you're looking for a steak restaurant. So you search, steak restaurant. What does Google results show you? Shows you all the steak restaurants closest to you. It's not showing you ones that are in the next city over or, 50 miles up the highway in another city. It's showing you everything that's around you because you probably want to eat somewhere in your local neighborhood or at least close. The same thing applies to remodelers and plumbers and chiropractors and dentists and everything out there. It doesn't matter the niche. The Google Maps algorithm works the same way. They're trying to show you results that are closest to you because why would you want a remodeler that's an hour away? He's probably not going to come visit you. Not going to do that job. So that's how proximity can really remain very influential in the algorithm. But strong authority and relevance that you build through different types of signals can outweigh that physical distance in many cases. Location matters. Location will always matter, but it's not the only factor. So don't get too hung up on that. And then let's talk about review velocity and sentiment. Velocity is the frequency of new reviews. And so I think this is where a lot of people go wrong. They maybe, go ask a bunch of people, get a bunch of reviews, but then they don't get any more reviews for 3 more months. Google sees that. They go, well, did you go out of business? Why aren't you getting reviews anymore? Google doesn't know. It's an algorithm. They don't know if you went out of business or not. They just know that you haven't gotten a review in 3 or 4 months while your competitor is getting maybe less reviews monthly, but he gets them consistently every single month. So that's review velocity. And then review sentiment. This refers to the tone and the keywords within reviews. So what kind of tone are they writing with? And are they using some keywords? Did they actually, slip in? The kitchen remodel you did for us was great. That's something you should coach your clients on. If they're going to leave you feedback, tell them to mention, what you had done, and that keyword in there is going to help. And so those are review velocity and review sentiment are super important. That frequency of how often you're getting reviews, and then the depth and tone of those reviews, and how well they speak to the job that was done as well as your company. Google's going to analyze reviews. They read every single one. They're analyzing for consistency. They're analyzing the content and context of that review. And then, how relevant are they, as well as, maybe how detailed reviews are that mention specific services, like I mentioned, or maybe, different project types. That's going to help strengthen your ranking as well. Consistency over time, though, that's more powerful than anything, than those short bursts of review activity. You don't want short bursts. You want consistency month after month. And then while we're talking about engagement signals, reviews or engagement signals are really user interaction metrics such as click-through rate, dwell time on your website, how long they spend on each page, and then bounce rate. Do they just bounce right back into the search results, kind of sending a message to Google that maybe your website is not delivering the content that they were looking for? And so when we talk about engagement signals, we're talking about click-through rate. Click-through rate, did they see your listing, your website, and click through to your website? And then dwell time is how long do they spend on your website? And so that's a total amount of time. And then how long do they spend on each page, reading, watching videos, things like that. That's why videos are great, because they keep people on your page longer. And then bounce rate. Did someone click on a page and then boom, 5 seconds later that they're bounced right back into maybe another page on your website, or even worse, back into the search results to find another contractor to click on. And so all those can be found in your Google Search Console. So definitely pay attention to those. Google is observing how users behave after clicking to your website. That's what's going on. That's what your Google Search Console is full of information about that. If users leave your website really quickly, it suggests low relevance to your content, and it's basically defined as a poor user experience, what we call UX. And then strong user experience, a strong UX, it talks, it really speaks to trustworthy content that keeps your visitors engaged on your site. And of course, that's going to improve your SEO performance because Google is measuring all of that. Trust keeps people on your site. That's the bottom line. It's not simply ranking websites just for the sake of ranking websites. It's ranking trust is really what it's ranking. In other words, attention is a ranking factor now. How in tune and how attentive are people to your website, your content, your videos, everything out there that you're producing. And so then, that basically is authority. And so let's talk about how content authority is shifting. Um, Content authority shifts represent kind of an overall transition from producing high volumes of keyword driven content to producing strategically created better resources. So deeper, more experience based content these trust building resources that you can use to position your business as the definitive expert in your market. And so, the old model of SEO relied on publishing large volumes of blog posts, targeting random keywords and using those keywords over and over and over. The new algorithm, basically, the new model of how to really succeed online is focusing more on strategic service pages, more detailed storytelling when it comes to the projects that you're doing, not just a before and after picture, but tell the story. Paint a picture that people can see themselves being a part of. Also, cost transparency. We're doing cost estimators now on client websites, so that really helps. There's also process documentation, just the whole process and how everything moves on the timeline of your project. And then also the last thing is just really localized depth, making sure that you are the contractor in your area. So fewer pages, fewer blog pages, but better pages. Your strategy is going to define your output, meaning that one strong content resource that you can have on your website is going to beat out 10 weak pieces of content or any day. There's no competition. It's the same thing when we talk about backlinks. One really good backlink to your website from a high authority, high domain website is going to be better than 100 junky, spammy, backlinks. Back in the day, he who had the most backlinks wins. You had 10,000, you beat the guy with 1,000. That's not the case anymore. You can have 100,000 and someone else can have 10, and you're going to beat them out in a ranking. So quality definitely matters over quantity when it comes to pages, blog pages, backlinks, pretty much anything. It's kind of a metaphor for life, right? Just quality matters. Your project pages, they're really powerful SEO assets because they demonstrate that real world experience that Google is looking for. I mentioned cost guides that attract high intent traffic. People that are running through a cost calculator, they're getting a little more serious about their intent, right? So that's a good signal. It's a good thing to have on your website. Detailed service pages are always going to outperform any kind of generic summaries that you're writing. And then, of course, as builders, remodelers, you guys know that you must document your real work and the expertise out there, to build that digital authority. People want to see the work you're doing. Google wants to see that you're actually doing real work out there in people's homes as well. So, bottom line is, Authority-driven content is consistently going to outperform that volume-driven content that is just, quantity over quality, and we know that doesn't really work. Let's talk about strategic service pages a little bit. Comprehensive core pages that target your primary service offerings is what we're talking about here. These pages should demonstrate authority through depth, through FAQs, through insights on cost and planning, internal linking to other pages on your website that are related to that same topic. A kitchen remodeling page that goes to a kitchen design page that links internally to a kitchen cost page that links to maybe that cost calculator page. So they're all related. They're all being internally linked. So that's really important. And then, of course, local references to your business and the work you're doing. So strategic service pages, they what they do is they comprehensively target all of your primary service offerings. Every one of your service offerings should have its own strategically written service page for that offering. These pages should include depth, those FAQs I talked about, any kind of cost insights you can give, and then make sure you're doing all of that internal linking as well. Service pages, they really should feel like the most authoritative resource available in your city. If someone wanted to find out about a particular service, your page should be the go-to source in the entire city. And if you look at it and say, oh no, this is not the best go-to page for the entire city looking for this topic, well, time to rewrite it then, right? Surface level pages no longer compete effectively. These pages, they should both educate and they should sell the reader. And then you can add in those internal links to other pages and other resources on your website. This is what we call siloing. These embedded links can help Google and other search engines understand more depth to your topic. So it's really important to kind of silo pages. Google loves that siloing because it's a natural progression of the same topic into subtopics, and it's exactly the way a user would want to have that user experience presented to them. So that's how Google, really likes that, because it's easier for Google and other search engines to find how all that topic, how all those pages and that topic is related. It just makes sense too that it makes it easier for a homeowner to find those related pages as well. And so, can I hear more examples of some strategic service pages? There's many options here from FAQ pages with pop-up windows. You can do a cost insights page with cost estimators like I talked about. And then here you can see local references as well, so that Google knows exactly what area we're targeting and featured in our content. You're calling out that city so that Google knows exactly, you are talking about the trusted custom home builder in this particular city. And then last, I mentioned internal linking. And internal linking, that's where you're embedding a link into your content that takes users to another resource on your page. That keeps them engaged on your website longer. And it also kind of shows you if they're more serious about intent and possibly moving forward with your service. And then I mentioned earlier, really deep project storytelling is really, really a successful strategy nowadays. We're talking about detailed case studies here that explain the whole project, but it also talks about, the challenges you may have had with that project, some of the solutions that you may have come up with and kicked around, and then, of course, the outcomes. Case studies are trust builders. Deep project storytelling involves, publishing detailed case studies that talk about this whole project and everything you encountered from that moment where you're meeting with the clients and you're trying to understand their vision and presenting some design ideas. And then, of course, how that project unfolded over time, what kind of challenges and obstacles you may have faced, what kind of outcomes did you get from that. Those challenges are really good because it just shows that everything doesn't go as according to plan all the time. You have these featured finished photos, but sometimes there's a lot that happened in between to make that happen. And so this is where your authority can really shine if you can really talk about a project like that, because all things create being equal, one website that's talking about case studies and really unpacking a whole project and how it came together and some of the challenges you faced and the before and after pictures and maybe a great video testimonial with smiling husband and wife in their new kitchen maybe. That's going to rank better than another website that just says, see our portfolio and just shows you a bunch of pictures. It's good. You need to have a portfolio, but telling a story is going to be much more important. Just remember, every completed project really becomes an SEO asset for you. Remodelers, builders, all you guys, home improvement contractors, you should all be documenting the story behind the work you're doing, not just showcasing photos. Real experience is going to help you build that digital authority more effectively than kind of any kind of generic advice that you can be getting given out or AI generated advice. And then content that's centered around cost transparency is really good. This is detailed content, kind of explaining, realistic price ranges and cost factors that will influence project costs. Remember, homeowners, they at least want price ranges. But keeping it a big mystery is kind of typically a turnoff. You don't want to just avoid saying a price because it makes it sound like you're hiding something. You're kind of being a little cheeky, as the British would say. You at least want to give them a range and just say, hey, there's a lot of factors that can influence this range on the low and the high end. But if you just must have a range, this is the range we work in. Detailed cost guides attract high intent commercial traffic, and they really build trust before consultations begin. Transparency filters out unqualified prospects while attracting the serious buyers, because that's important. You want serious buyers, but I think just as importantly, you want to get rid of unserious buyers. They just don't, have a budget. They think, $10,000 is going to do a new kitchen. It's not going to happen. So they're really unqualified, and you just kind of want to move past those and put more of your focus in your CRM, your sales and marketing efforts into attracting serious buyers and having continued conversations and follow up with them. And that, the authoritative content that you're producing is going to consistently outperform, some of that high volume, low depth content. So that's going to help you attract more serious buyers as well. And the bottom line is that Google simply rewards honesty and transparency when it comes to this. It doesn't want you trying to, pull one over on people. And so coming up as the year starts unfolding here, there's some Google algorithm trends that you guys should be watching. Google has increasingly put more emphasis on evaluating experience and experience signals through their EAT acronym, and that stands for experience, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. It also measures brand authority signals. It measures your review integration and that velocity and sentiment of reviews. It's looking at your internal linking structure we talked about. And then also, I briefly mentioned local backlink quality. It's looking at that. Like I said, one really good backlink will beat out 100 or even 1,000 low quality backlinks, because those low quality backlinks, they're not doing anything for you anymore. Most of them are getting de-indexed and they're just going away. If you go and look at your backlink counter, if you're using any software tools like SEMrush or Ahrefs or some of the many others out there, you probably see your backlinks decreasing over time, even though you're adding more. And that's just low quality backlinks just getting de-indexed from the system. Um, Recognition all across the web builds trust. And this is something that we call omnipresence. And that is just being everywhere that everyone looks, online as well as offline. It's a really important concept. It's that next level of brand building needed to succeed online today. So really think about that omnipresence, just being ubiquitous all over the internet. Your experience is now measurable with the way Google's algorithm is working. And what I mean by that is, small remodelers can outrank larger competitors when they demonstrate stronger localized authority and expertise. And so consistency over time is going to always outperform those little short bursts of activity. SEO, search engine optimization, and ranking on page one of Google, that compounds over time, and it rewards strategic investment rather than quick tactics. And so, long-term strategy should always be first and foremost in your mind. Don't ever think in terms of short hacks and just short quick fixes. It doesn't exist. It may exist for a couple months till Google figures something out or whatever. But think about long term. That's really, you're in this for the marathon. This is not a sprint. And so let's talk about that EAT acronym again: experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. This is the framework that Google uses to evaluate credibility for your website in today's search environment. Google's no longer just ranking optimized pages. It's really assessing whether content reflects your real world experience and whether you've built a legitimate authority. And so for remodelers, this is kind of the competitive advantage. You have firsthand knowledge. You have real project challenges and work you've done. You have real budgets that you've had to adhere to and have probably, busted a few times. And you also have real results to show the work you've done. It's these lived experiences carry more weight than generic advice. Experience builds expertise, and documented expertise builds authority. And then authority builds trust. If you've done the work, show it off, because Google cannot reward that experience. It cannot see. So that's something to really think about. Are you showcasing not only your projects and your work, but like I said, telling some stories, really, create some case studies out there. Your competitors are going to be doing it, one or two at least, if not more. So you can sit on the sidelines and not do some of this stuff, or you can listen to someone like me who's out on the tip of the spear, figuring out what's working, and take my advice and try to emulate some of this stuff as best you can, or, give us a call and we'll show you how it's done. Brand authority signals. This is really mentions of you across the internet, maybe associations you're in, just any kind of recognition across the web that mentions your brand in some, a way, shape, or form. Brand authority, that's built through these random mentions, through the different associations, vendor relationships you have, just anything and everything where you're recognized across the whole internet. It's not just what exists on your website alone. Google's going to be evaluating all the different citations and directory sources that mention you out there, a lot of which you don't even know about. They just kind of pick up your name and company details and create a directory listing for you. It's going to be, Google's going to be evaluating the quality and volume of your backlinks. It's going to be looking at local partnerships that you have, maybe press features, press releases that you may have been featured in. Even, brand mentions, like signals that your business is basically legitimate and trusted within its market. That's the kind of brand mentions Google's looking for. And so when reputable organizations or local publications or industry partners, community groups, whenever they reference your company, it strengthens your credibility in ways that, on-page SEO optimization alone cannot do. Your brand footprint matters because it shows that others recognize and validate your expertise. That's why backlinks are so important, because it's really another site validating your website, your expertise, your authority. That's why good backlinks matter. Your authority extends well beyond your website. So just remember that your authority, your brand authority, your brand, it's being reinforced by the broader whole digital ecosystem that surrounds your business out there. And then I talked a little bit about internal linking strategy. That's where we're talking about connecting the related pages within your website to signal depth and topical relevance. An effective internal linking strategy kind of intentionally connects related pages within your website to signal that topical depth and relevance. Like I said before, it helps Google understand your content structure and those authority clusters, we call them, because pages that support one another, they end up building cumulative strength, while isolated pages really struggle to establish authority. And the bottom line is that these internal links, they're telling Google really what matters most. And what matters most to Google typically matters the most to your clients as well. And so, when we talk about backlink quality, we were talking about internal linking. So those are links within your site, going from page to page of your own site. Backlinks are another website backlinking or linking back to your website. And so these are links from relevant local businesses, organizations, or informative type of websites. Local backlink quality refers to earning links from local businesses that are relevant. They're in your industry, organizations that are in your industry, community entities that are related to your industry. That's going to strengthen your not only your geographical authority, but also your market credibility. Because again, it goes back to quality always outweighs the quantity, and that local relevance is going to carry far more ranking power than just random unrelated links. Back in the day, just thousands and thousands of links, however many you can build was the winner. And I mean, it could be to stuff completely unrelated to your website, equestrian training and cat videos and everything else. It didn't matter. You just had more links, and so you won. But those days are long gone. So make sure that all your backlinks are high quality and relevant to your industry. So what should remodelers be doing right now? Most likely, this initiative for you and your marketing team is not going to require a full rebuild. What you should do is focus on your strongest assets first. Find great performing pages in your Google Search Console. This is where you can make some good content improvements, what we call repurposing content into a better version of itself. And so these may be small changes, but small changes can have a big impact over time. Um, so, think about looking in there, finding pages that aren't performing, and then rewrite them, repurpose them so that maybe they will become more interesting. Whether you work with us or you're working with another marketing company or you got your own in-house team, like this is something that you need to do. Start repurposing some of your content, because if Google sees a page sitting there that's getting no traffic, it's not helping you. You might as well try to repurpose that and get Google to notice that. That's going to really help. And then some of the things that you can do in terms of positioning for authority. Audit your Google business profile. Ensure that you've got all the right categories. You've got photos going up every week, maybe every day even. Monthly at worst case, but more often would be better. Make sure you have good review velocity. You're getting reviews on a consistent basis, as well as trying to achieve peak volume there, just so that you can compete with a competitor that has 400 reviews, maybe real, maybe not. And then making sure that your descriptions and your keywords and the service offerings are all optimized and listed out on your Google business profile. And then one thing you can do too, if you want to kind of start small, is just try to strengthen your top 3 service pages. We're talking your kitchen remodeling page, your home additions page, your basement remodeling or full home renovations, whatever you really focus on. Just focus on trying to add some real depth here, add some FAQs in there, show some examples, add some internal links that go to other relevant pages on your website where it all ties together. Do a little bit of storytelling. That really helps as well. In regards to storytelling, a third thing you can do is to build some high quality project pages. Basically a case study. Take three of your projects, include the story, the backstory to it, how Bob and Nancy came to you and what their budget range was and the timeline that you needed for the project. And then anything that you can mention locally that might be related to the project, the city that it's built in, a permitting department that you worked with, anything like that that just really adds some credibility and localized authority for you. And then also, I would highly recommend adding some kind of content that speaks to cost transparency. Publish realistic cost guides that are aligned with your local market data, either data that you've built over time or you share with your local remodeling home builders association. You know what costs are, where prices are coming in. Content related to cost typically always improves your lead quality. You're going to get people that they want to know more, and you've got the right answers for them. And then lastly, improve your review strategy. Establish a system where you can get consistent reviews, what we call a review acquisition system. You've got workflows built in your CRM that periodically hits your contact list, your email newsletter list, your previous client list, so that you can get reviews on a more consistent basis. And then make sure that you're posting thoughtful responses back to those reviews on Google when you get to them. You can go reply as the owner and thank the person for their well thought out feedback that they've given you. Your review acquisition strategy should be intentional, not random. So these actions all work together to build measurable authority in Google's eyes, optimizing your profile. It's going to strengthen your local visibility. These deeper service pages with some depth, it's going to improve your relevance and engagement. That project storytelling is going to demonstrate experience that people are looking for. And then, of course, that cost transparency, that's going to capture more high intent traffic. They're much closer to the bottom of the funnel and ready to drop out and drop into your lap and sign a deal with you. And then, of course, consistent reviews always reinforce trust. People do business with people that they know, like, and trust. We know that. And so when combined, all of these signals really create a cohesive authority footprint that positions your company not just to rank, but to be selected. They intentionally selected you to work with, as opposed to some of those lead gen providers where homeowner goes on there and puts their specs and they get bombarded by 10 different contractors. No one's selecting you, but you do want to be selected when it comes to search. And so the big takeaway here is this. Google is moving closer to how real homeowners think and decide. That's AI coming in there and coming into that algorithm. The companies that are going to win going forward, they're not really going to be chasing that algorithm. They're going to be building trust. They're going to be building clarity, and they're going to be building authority. And if you focus on those things, the rankings tend to follow. So that's important. Keep that in mind. So I hope you guys have got some good value out of this so far. I've got a lot of good questions here I want to go through. I think these are some good questions that will help a lot of folks. Our chat's kind of been blowing up a little bit today, so hopefully that means this has been a well-received workshop today. The first question I saw from Sarah was, is SEO still worth it with all this AI search stuff taking over? And that's a good question, Sarah. I get that often a lot, and I hear, SEO is dead, and I've been hearing that for 10 years now, if I'm being honest with you. So, no, SEO isn't going away. It's just evolving. AI pulls from trusted sources all over, and SEO is just how you become one of those sources. So, AI is factoring into SEO. It is not separate by any means. They are working together and they're sort of becoming one. Different aspects, different ways to rank, different things to do, lots of different strategies, but AI is becoming part of SEO. It's now called AEO, answer engine optimization, basically trying to get you to show up in AI, whether it be Google's AI overviews or just showing up when someone goes to chat and says, "Hey, who's the best remodeler in town?" Tom asked a question: will blogging still help my remodeling business due to the the AI articles getting de-indexed? And so, yeah, Tom, absolutely, blogging should still be going on for everyone on this call, but it's only useful if it's deep, well-written content, and it's useful in an application to the homeowner. So, like I said earlier, fewer really high quality pieces of content is going to beat out just lots of short, generic, thin content that just doesn't have a lot of depth to it, doesn't answer any questions, doesn't really give you anything to really go off of. But yes, absolutely, Tom, you should be writing blog content every month, one or two blogs a month, but well written and answering questions and addressing needs and issues of your typical homeowner. Another question I got from Ted. Ted said, "Do I need to use AI to create content now? Is AI mandatory?" Ted, this is something I say over and over. AI is a tool. It's not a strategy. It's just a tool. Real experience and your local insights are what actually rank. So, if you've got people writing for you on your marketing team, great. Have them keep writing. If you don't, then use AI to get you started, but make sure that you massage that article, that you inject your own tone, your own kind of personality into it. It's rewriting the article basically, but it's better than starting from a blank slate, a blank page. AI is great for that, but generic, thin content where you say, "Hey, ChatGPT, write me an article on kitchen remodeling." That I can tell you is going to be a completely useless article. Your homeowners, prospective clients are not going to like it, and search engines like Google's aren't going to like it either. They're not going to pay any attention to it. So it's got to be good content. Here's another good question from Michael. Should I show pricing on my website? So we talked about that a little bit, right? And I say yes. Cost ranges are the way to go. You don't have to list an exact price because obviously there's a range, when we're talking about quartz versus granite versus stone, countertops, different cabinets, tile versus hardwoods, refinishing hardwoods versus new hardwoods. We got all kinds of ranges there, but by listing cost ranges instead of specific pricing on your site, that's going to build trust. It's going to improve that lead quality. You're going to just get some of those tire kickers and low budget people that not even call you, and so you might get less leads, but you're also going to have less, hassle on the phone of being like, oh, another crappy lead. And then those cost ranges that you list, that's also going to help Google understand the relevance of the projects you're doing. And when people use superlatives like luxury and high end, they're going to know that, hey, this website, Michael's website here, talks about high end and luxury and higher priced, kitchen remodels or home renovations. And so that's going to, all come together when it comes to ranking you higher over some of your competitors that don't do cost ranges. And Emily just posted a great question. She asked, if I only fix one thing first, what should it be? And for me, that answer is easy. It's your top service pages. I talked about that just a few slides ago. Make those service pages deeper, more clear, more insightful, just more helpful. Your main services that you offer: kitchen remodeling, bathroom remodeling, maybe full home renovations, maybe ADUs, maybe additions, whatever it may be. Just make those top service pages much more helpful and more insightful for people. A couple more questions here. Aaron just asked, can small remodeling companies still compete locally? Absolutely, Aaron. Absolutely. Local authority and trust matter more now than ever, and they certainly matter more than company size. Big company, they've got some advantages, of course, but you can compete with them. You're doing strong work, quality craftsmanship, offering an impeccable, five-star standard of customer service. You can write good quality. You can put good authority out there. You can get good reviews, maybe not as many reviews as the, $20 million company, but you can compete just as well by doing the right things from an SEO standpoint, from an AI standpoint, everything we've kind of talked about today. And then, of course, everything we talk about across all of our monthly webinars, which you can find all those on YouTube. Um, One more question here before I'll wrap up. We're about at our limit here. Um, Got a question from Anthony. It said, "What's the biggest SEO mistake that remodelers are making right now?" That kind of comes back to something I think I was talking about earlier. One of the other questions was the biggest mistake remodelers are making right now is just publishing generic content that doesn't really reflect any real world, real project experience. Just a bunch of content about kitchen remodeling and we're the best and we offer great customer service and we've been in business for 20 years. Like, yeah, maybe all that's true, but you have to weave that in with some other really valuable content that talks about your design process, that talks about cost ranges and has an estimator form, maybe the storytelling, the case studies that I talked about. Generic content just doesn't address any of that. It's just, if you're thinking about a kitchen remodel, these are 3 things that you should think about. Here are the top 7 things. Those are kind of getting old. Everyone's used those up and wore them out with millions of versions of them using AI. And so start really talking about your real projects, your real story that you have to tell. Help people put themselves into the story that they want to create for themselves, that they want your help with in creating. So ditch the generic content and start going a lot deeper, Anthony, in your content. And I think you'll really see some improvement in quality traffic, quality leads, and hopefully, get out on some more design consultations. All right, that's a wrap for today. Don't hesitate to reach out if you think that this is just beyond your scope and just you're wearing too many hats as a business owner as it is. Reach out. Let's get together. We'll take a look at your website, your whole web presence, see what's going on, and if we can help you, we will. But what we're really here to do is just help everyone get better in the industry, try to move the industry forward. I really appreciate everyone coming on here. I really appreciate all the questions too. A lot of good questions, a lot of good interaction today. So really appreciate that. If you got any more questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Hit me up via email, call, hit us up on socials. Any way that we can help you, we're here for you. But I really appreciate everyone being here. And I look forward to seeing everyone on the next workshop. Take care, everyone.